Donorfy's lists feature provides powerful point-and-click queries and reports. Lists are the ad hoc query function in Donorfy and are an easy-to-use reporting tool as well. And the reason they exist is that you may want a list, for example, to see how many donors you have in a certain area who are also giving above a certain level and maybe also are volunteers, or any kind of combination of characteristics that you like from your database. So lists are also used to provide the basis for some kind of a campaign, so be it a mailing or an email campaign. You might also use lists to update your database with. So having got a list of people or constituents on your database, you might use that list then to update the tags with a certain tag on those people, or even to archive them if you wanted to produce a list of people who are inactive for the last 10 years or something. So you can create a list based on any of the information you have in Donorfy. And I'm just going to show you an example list here for a constituent list. So we click this one here, which is 500 and over donors. And you can see the broad structure of a list, which is the top part of the list here in the middle of the screen is the definition of the list, where you have the name. You can tag your list as being owned by certain people or departments, so you can search for them easily. You can lock a list so that people can't inadvertently change the criteria for that list. It's just a fixed list then. You can make a constituent list appear in the menu. So in the constituents menu on the left-hand side of the screen here, which is expandable, certain lists may be made available to be like a quick filter view of the database. You can also filter the list. It's a very important part of a list, so it's the ability to filter who you display. And that filter comes in two parts. When it's a constituent-based list, you will get a filter like this, which is to enable you to respect any of the comms preferences. So you might, in this case, say we're opening it up to anyone who is available for email, and let's use legitimate interest for mail. Either we don't know or they've said yes to mail, but they haven't said no, and they're open to appeals. So those are the kind of top level filters. Then you have a second level filter here, which is the business filter, if you like, the conditions for people to be on this list apart from them having those preferences. So in this particular one, we have a filter that says the total amount this year is greater than or equal to £500, so they've given 500 or more this year, and the constituent type is individual. So you can see here you can build up multi-level filters with ands and ors and brackets if you want to get clever with your logic, and the results of that list are shown below. So these are the results of my list, and if I was to save this list and come back to it again next week, I might have a slightly different list in here of results because someone else has come into that category perhaps, and maybe someone else has dropped out. So you have the list definition and you have the list results at the bottom there. Now you can go further with these list results. So on one hand, it's just useful to be able to see them like this and maybe select which columns you want to be displayed in that list from all of the available data about your constituents. But you might want to now do something with this. So you can download your list. And as I download my constituent list, I can add activities to all my constituents in that list to say that we're sending them this campaign or that campaign, whatever it is. I can tag them all. I can produce a report, which is a PDF report with subtotals according to the sort order that I may select by clicking on the top of one of the columns. I can archive these people. If I'm a system administrator, I get the archive button here, which allows me to, if this was a list of inactive donors, allows me to archive them. And I can sync this list with an audience in MailChimp. And what that will do is send this information across to MailChimp with all of the tags and characteristics of these constituents into the corresponding MailChimp tags so that you can then execute a campaign in MailChimp for them. So that's the basics of lists. Lists are used in other places in Donorfy as well. So a list can be a basis for auto tags. So for example, if you wanted a tag to appear on every constituent who answers to this description, so they've given over £500, and is an individual, then when setting up your auto tag in settings, you would use this list as the basis for that auto tag to be applied. So lists are used not only as an ad hoc query tool for you to view the results here and now, they're also used every night for refreshing your auto tags. They're also used for triggers. So if you're using the Donorfy triggers tool, which is an automation tool to say when something happens, do something else, that when something happens might be based on a condition. So it might be when a new constituent is added and they exist on a certain list, then do that trigger, or that trigger action. So lists can be used throughout Donorfy, not only just as a way to view information as we are looking at it here. So going a bit deeper with this, there are some more features you can avail yourselves of with lists. One is that if you have a large database, and we're looking at here where you have your own dedicated SQL Azure database, we call it the Own Azure feature in Donorfy. You may have large data volumes, and you may want certain types of data to be available in lists that aren't available in standard list views. So you can create custom queries in your own Azure SQL database and make them available now in the lists feature within Donorfy, so that users day to day can just use the point and click functionality of lists rather than having to understand the SQL side of things. So that's one of the deeper features of lists. And the other one I want to explain to you is just that you can use lists in campaigns to provide multi-segment mailing lists that are automatically deduplicated between those segments. So where you may have a campaign that's going out for a particular appeal, say a winter appeal, you might have an overall selection and then test people for being in certain segments. And Donorfy uses lists in a kind of a cascading waterfall style, so that the first list they appear in, they will get that particular communication within that appeal. And you can change the order of sequence of those segments as well. So more information on that if you're interested in the campaigns video. But that's just a summary of lists. Should also say that apart from constituent lists, you can get any piece of data that's in Donorfy that you like out as a list. So when you're adding a list, you're invited to choose, yes, constituent list is possibly the most common, but you might want a list of activities. So a list of all attendances at events perhaps, or all mailings that have gone out. You might want a campaign list, a list of campaigns, and you might want a fundraising page list, and so on. So any of the entities in Donorfy are available in lists, and that will determine the kind of structure, the layout of your list in terms of one row per constituent, one row per transaction, and so on. So that's a quick overview of lists. Powerful point and click tool that goes deeper, but a tool that you can use every day to see what's in your database. Thanks for watching.